Hello everyone, in this video I'll be showing you a build for a pure 12 levels with the Bladesinging Wizard in Baldur's Gate 3. Now this is one of my favorite subclasses in patch 8 as it has a lot of great multi-classes, but a pure Bladesinging Wizard is also very powerful. So with this, the starting cantrips I would recommend having are Booming Blade, obviously one of the most powerful new cantrips in the game. Mage Hand is great because you can have it throw health potions early game, which is great healing for your team, and it can also throw water bottles to double your cold and lightning damage. And if you're the face of the party, Friends is a really great spell. Just make sure after the 10 turns is up that you run away if you're on Honor mode or on Tactician. Otherwise, Firebolt to explode things is great. I also like Toll the Dead for the extra damage, or Shocking Grasp to remove this reactions from the targets. And finally, my favorite pick is Bone Chill here actually too, because it makes it so the target does not receive healing, which some fights it's actually very useful. As for spells, Mage Armor is kind of essential because early game we'll be wearing robes. We'll also be taking the Shield spell, increasing armor class by 5, and also the Magic Missile, Thunder Wave, Find Familiar, and the Grease spell. So the reason we want Grease is great crowd control that comes from with that. You can also add in Long Striders. This is a free spell if you don't, if you're outside of combat. It'll increase your movement speed by 3, which is extremely useful. And Chromatic Orb is also kind of nice too, but I like to take the Grease spell just for the extra crowd control. Now, ability scores are a little bit tricky because early game we need obviously high intelligence, but we also do weapon attacks, which makes it so that dexterity is actually a better choice for us. And then what we can do is actually put a 16 dexterity, 14 constitution, and 16 intelligence. If you prefer having higher health, you can swap them, but we'll be wearing light armor or robes. So the higher dexterity means we have a higher armor class, which is very, very needed. And for skill proficiencies, you can take the ones that you prefer having. I like to have insight checks. Level 2 lets us take our subclass with the Bladesinging Wizard here, and this gives us a +2, eventually a +4 to our armor class and constitution saving throws, so we're much less likely to drop concentrations on our spells, and it also increases our movement speed by 3 meters. Really nice. And then we can have the Long Strider here to increase our movement speed even further. Sleep is a good early game spell, so is Tasha's Hideous Laughter, so whatever of these you prefer. And for the Bladesinging weapon, this gives you a free weapon. I would recommend grabbing the Rapier or Longsword. Anything that you can use really with a shield works fine. Level 3, we also get access to level 2 spells, so we'll take Hold Person and Scorching Ray, which are really good spells because Scorching Ray can critically hit if a target is hit with Hold Person, making all crits within 3 meters from any weapon attack or spell casting. Now, for our prepared spells, I'd recommend having Hold Person, Scorching Ray once we hit this level. Mage Armor is super useful too for the +3 to our armor class, and Shield for survivability. Magic Missile, guaranteed damage. Thunder Wave for the pushback, really good too. You can put in the Find Familiar and take the Raven out because it can apply blind on enemies, which is extremely effective for just stopping them from dealing damage to you. For our next level spell, I guess Minor Illusion can be good, and also because this can group enemies together for the Fireball spell that we'll be getting at next level. Otherwise, Firebolt's a good choice. And for the next level 2 spell, Shadowblade is going to be the highest amount of damage possible, so I am going to take it, but you don't have to take it. It's just there's no scrolls for it, whereas there's scrolls for other spells. So we'll take Shadowblade and Misty Step here, but Mirror Image is also nice for the +9 to our armor class. And we'll prepare these spells here and probably throw in Misty Step. For our feat, I would recommend boosting up our intelligence. The Alert feat is also really good too for the +5 to initiative, and it can't be surprised, especially if you're in honor mode. There's going to be a few fights once you approach here that you will be surprised. I would actually prefer having a sorcerer because they can cast 2 spells in a turn, so that makes Alert much more valuable to them versus a wizard, but a wizard also really benefits from it as well. There's also some other choices that we normally don't go with, like the Defensive Duelist, with using a finesse weapon. You use reaction to add proficiency bonus armor class, although it's a little bit better to use a shield as a spell, but that is an option that we do have. I would prefer using intelligence or the Alert feat there. Alert feat's good, you want to take it pretty early on. Level 5, most powerful spell in the game, Counterspell. And also, Lightning Bolt's great too because you can hit multiple targets with it. Some people prefer Fireball, but I took Mage Hand earlier, and Mage Hand can throw a water bottle, making this upwards of 96 damage, which is crazy. And then for our prepared spells, we'll throw in Counterspell. You have to have Counterspell and Lightning Bolt there. Lightning Bolt's just great because, again, it's a lot of targets that you can hit all at once, which is really effective. Level 6 gives us our extra attack, obviously a huge power spike as well. And then we can take another spell. Fear can be a good one to go with, but I like to take Fireball. Haste is nice as well, though I prefer having a Sorcerer with Haste. Sleet Storm or even the Slow spell can be nice too, just to stop concentrations. Even Fear makes enemies drop their weapons, which can be extremely effective in a lot of situations. And if you're a half-elf, Glyph of Warding, Sleep, can put enemies asleep, which is also really nice to have. So we'll prepare Shadowblade there, because I find it gets really good once you get at the end of Act 2. When you get the Resonance Stone, which we'll cover in the gear section. Now, Ice Storm is one of the best level 4 spells. So is Conjure Minor Elemental, with the or the Ice Elementals being able to deal extra damage, especially with the chilled condition set up, which we'll get from an Elemental here in a moment. Now, for the next level spell, I'd recommend grabbing Ice Storm and then Minor Elemental as well. Both those spells are really great just to have. And level 8, this is where we get to take another spell as well, with Confusion being a really good one to crowd control and hit multiple enemies at a time, making them hit each other, which is always fun. And then Wall of Fire can be good for the crowd control and damage that it gives. Blade's not really that great. Edward's Black Tentacles can be okay for crowd control. Greater Invisibility actually suits this pretty well. If you like stealth, this is a good way to go about doing it. If you don't want to use stealth, you can take that off and then go with an earlier spell like Mirror Image or even Haste. And then for our next one, Alert, as mentioned, is really good. Or you can go with an increase to your intelligence with an ability score improvement. Either of those are going to be good options. At level 9, we get to take some of the best spells in the game, Cone of Cold and Conjure Elemental. Now, Conjure Elemental, the Water Elemental, not the Mirror Madame with the Water Elemental, they actually changed in patch 8. Water Elemental can do an attack with its main punching attack, which will apply Chilled, making things like Cone of Cold do double damage. So this becomes 128 max damage, which is crazy. So these two spells synergize very well together. We want to have them equipped at all times just because it's such a boost to our overall damage. Level 10 gives us the Song of Defense. So this is actually really nice because whenever we get hit with an attack, we can use a spell slot to reduce the damage by 5 times the spell slot's level. So if you get hit with an attack that does 20 damage, use a level 4 spell slot, you take no damage. Pretty good. Not the absolute best choice, but yeah, you don't use your reaction, so that's nice too. Now for our next level spell, Toll the Dead's pretty good damage. We'll go with that. And then for our next level spell, Hold Monster. Very effective spell. Cloud Kill, if you have a cleric with the Hero's Feast, can make it so that you don't get hit with damage from Cloud Kill, which can be good too. Dominate Person or Planar Binding if you really wanted to, or other spells you could go with. I'd even go back and take like Wall of Fire there. And for our prepared spells, we'll make sure that we do have our elementals equipped. And then something like Confusion or Fireball works well too. And then once we get to our final levels here, we get access to some of the best spells in the game with Chain Lightning, Ode to Luke's Freezing Sphere, one of my absolute favorites. And we'll make sure that we do have these equipped. You only get one of them, but you can use different things in the game to give yourself an extra spell, which is pretty nice to have. And then level 12, since we're sticking with the full build here, Globe of Invulnerability, super useful spell to have as well. And Sunbeam can blind targets, which is nice, and Circle of Death can hit a huge explosion, but we can only cast one of these per long rest, so without any of the extra items we'll be getting to. So even Haste we can go ahead and take. And for the prepared spells, I would recommend having these here. You can choose between Luke's Freezing Sphere and the Chain Lightning, and then add Globe of Invulnerability, because that's obviously a very powerful spell, and then add in Shadowblade as well to the mix. So we'll roll with something like this. Now, if you're not using the Amulet of Greater Health, a Warcaster can help you hold concentrations on spells, which is really nice. And you can use a reaction to cast Shocking Grasp. This is a good choice. You can also go with Spell Sniper to learn Eldritch Blast and get an increased critical hit chance with your spells. So things like Scorching Ray have a 5% increase to overall critical hit chance. But it's hard to go wrong with an increase to your overall intelligence there. It's really a good choice. I'm using Skirby's Spartan Armor mod, but I'll be showing you full game items. Now, as far as gear choices go, we can either go with light armor or robes. So for the robe layout, we'll be going with the Hat of Fire Acuity here, because when we use Scorching Ray, we can get a +10 to our spell save DC. So using Scorching Ray into Chain Lightning means that our Chain Lightning is pretty much going to hit, because that +10 to spell save DC is huge. We also get the Cloak of Protection for the +1 to armor class, although use whatever cloak's best. You can even use something like the Vivacious, or the Cloak of Elemental Absorption here to give yourself additional damage when you get hit with a spell, which can be nice to reduce overall damage you'll be taking. And also the Thunderskin Cloak, whenever you deal damage to a reverberating creature, you can make the target daze, which is really nice because we also have the Gloves of Belligerent Skies here. Now the Robe of the Weave will give you additional spell save DC and +2 to armor class. And then if we use something like Mage Armor, and there are scrolls of Mage Armor, we can actually get a pretty high armor class, so that's really good too. But if you want to use Light Armor and use the Arcane Acuity helmet, this could be a little bit different because this is light armor, and then you can't wear Mage Armor. The Gloves of Belligerent Skies, but if you're going with light armor, you can also stack up spell save DC pretty easily by using the Glove of the Battle Mage's Power. So when you do an attack with a spell or a cantrip, so Booming Blade counts, and actually Shadow Blade with a normal melee attack counts here. So if you don't want to go around Reverberation, you can then add in the Gloves of Battle Mage's Power, which are still clothing, so you can get it with your fire spells and also with your melee attacks. So this is ensuring that we'll be able to cast with no problems. And the evasive shoes are nice too, but also you could go with the boots of Stormy Clamor. If you're going to be using ice, you could go with the disintegrating Nightwalkers, and you could even have a teammate buff up your overall damage by them equipping the Drake Throat Glaive and then using the elemental Draconic Age to then add extra damage to your attacks. But we also have the Ring of Arcane Synergy here, as this is going to give us extra damage equal to our intelligence modifier, so a +5 on our attacks, and it also turn our weapon blue, so if you have Shadowblade, it looks really cool. And then we also have the Ring of Protection for a better armor class, although we could use Killer Sweetheart, Ring of Regeneration, Ring of Free Action to reduce the movement speed that'll slow us down. But if we want to go with light armor, we would then instead use the Ballist armor here, which gives +2 initiative, and then we'd use a piercing weapon like the Duelist Prerogative, and then we'd use the Helmet of Arcane Acuity. The Duelist Prerogative, I believe, to be the best weapon outside of Shadowblade. This is more defensive focus. It just depends how you want to play, because with this, you get 2 reactions. That means 2 counterspells, and that's really, really good. People underrate how good a counterspell can be. So this will also give you increased critical hit chance, and it works well within the items that we got with this build. However, if you want to use something a little different, we can actually go ahead with using something like a staff and then summoning in a free Shadowblade here, or you can use the free spellcasting from the staff to instead create a elemental here. You could use a level 6 Water Myrmidon, but it no longer applies wet on targets. So I'd actually prefer to use the Water Elemental here, because their main attack will actually apply Chilled on the enemy. So whenever you go to use this, just use its Slam, which creates water on the enemy, and then they'll take double cold damage, which means your Cone of Cold or Odaluk's Freezing Sphere will deal double damage. You can then swap this out for the Staff of Spell Power, which also gives you another free cast, and then you can use that to upcast Shadowblade, making sure you're using the level 5 or 6 spell slot, because then you get a very powerful version of this with does 4d8 of damage, which is obviously quite a bit, and that's even further doubled with the Resonance Stone, so that's like 80 damage max on your attacks, which is absolutely crazy damage output, and that's not to mention using Booming Blade alongside it for the extra damage. Yeah, 56 damage, and that's being doubled, so you get a lot of damage if you have the Resonance Stone. And don't forget to apply mage armor, basically. And then also we have the Blade Song too to further increase armor class. And if you got Mirror Image, you can get your armor class up even further. So getting into combat, we can actually get our armor class much higher than the 23 here. So that's with the haste applied. Then we can also go with the Blade Song here. And I also should have mentioned you can add in another weapon to your offhand. Belm is a really good choice here because this gives you a bonus action attack. But you could also add in Dola Amaris for the free critical hits that it gives. So that's another good choice if you want to have an extra weapon here, because this will give you the bonus action attacks, and it keeps you blade singing, so that's really nice as well. So this can further enhance our overall armor class up to 27. And if you want to go absolutely crazy, you can then use Mirror Image to further give yourself a +9 to your armor class. That'll put us at 36 armor class. That's crazy. I did use up one of my actions already, unfortunately, but what we can do is you want to set up with crowd control of some sort. So I personally like to use something like a Odaluk's Freezing Sphere if you got it. We do have level 6 spell slot, so we can use the Odaluk's Freezing Sphere here because it has a huge area of effect and we'll be able to hit multiple targets. This is really the best opening because I used up my second action already, unfortunately. So boom, that Create Ice Surfaces knock down a lot of targets, and they'll end up keep slipping on their subsequent turns. Now, since we have Belm, we do get that bonus action, Perfectly Balanced Strike, so that gives us our main hand attack, which is going to one-shot this target. That's what's really great about it. I also use the Drake Throat Glaive, as mentioned, from Shadowheart here to give myself the extra lightning damage on my attacks. So that's why you'll see our main hand attack does an additional 1d4 of lightning damage. So we'll use our Perfectly Balanced Strike to attack here, getting that free knockout. Yeah, crazy amounts of damage, and perfect. So now we have ice terrain set up so that the enemies will slip and fall. And that's one prone already. We have that shield spell as a very nice reaction. I'm not going to use it here. You also got the Song of Defense, which doesn't use your spell slots, but we can reduce the damage that we've taken. So I'd reduce it by 5, which is pretty nice. I want to save my reaction for counter spells. And that's another target prone. The nice thing is that's turning the action economy in our favor, as there's less enemies that will be attacking us, which is great. Now we need to get our spell save DC up, so I would recommend actually just using a Scorching Ray on some targets that are kind of squishy, and we can upcast it to make sure that we land our shots and then get our spell save DC up so that we can go ahead with one of our more powerful spells. And anytime there's targets with low health, if you have any of the abilities that give you like Cull the Weak, for example, you can actually take out a lot of enemies a lot quicker that way. We didn't get the knockout, but we can then use our free cast for the Chain Lightning. This is only available to the Lithids, but it's really powerful. And then we go ahead there, boom. That took out everyone there. Chain Lightning is a very powerful spell. And then for our next turn, or I guess we have a bonus action left, so we can do our Perfectly Balanced Strike there, which does insane amounts of damage. Boom, 58 damage, and we create Electrified Surface. And for our next turn here, we can go ahead with just even do a bonus action attack. We got our main hand attack. We also got Booming Blade, which will give us a 48 plus 8 plus 1d4 plus 2d8, and then another 3d8 if the target moves. It's crazy damage. We don't have to do too much here, so I could even just pop Mirror Image to show us the maximum armor class here. So again, getting that 36 AC, making it so we're basically unhittable, which is nice. And then we can follow it up with just a single lightning bolt here, level 3 spell, boom, finishing things off. You cast it with your blade, which looks so cool. So there it is. That is a very powerful level 12 Bladesinging Wizard build in Baldur's Gate 3. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Hit the subscribe button below if you enjoyed, and I hope you have a great day. We'll catch you in the next one.